Hey everyone, Rich Bennett here. I'm excited to tell you about something we're doing for National Recovery Month. Here at Conversations with Rich Bennett, we're holding a special event called the Podathon for Recovery, 12 Days of Hope. For 12 consecutive days, we'll release a new episode dedicated to powerful conversations about addiction, recovery, and hope. And we're doing this to raise vital funds for an incredible nonprofit, Rage Against Addiction. They are on the front lines providing sober living homes, recovery coaching, and essential support to families. We believe recovery is a journey worth celebrating, and your support can make a tangible difference. Every donation, no matter the size, goes directly to them, helping to save lives and provide a second chance. So please join our mission. You can start donating right now. Simply go to conversationswithrichbennett.com and you'll see the donation thing right there so you can donate and help these women in recovery. Hey everyone, it's Rich Bennett. Can you believe it? The show is turning 10 this year. I am so grateful for each and every one of you who've tuned in, shared an episode, or even joined the conversation over the years. You're the reason that this podcast has grown into what it is today. Together, we've shared laughs, tears, and moments that truly matter. So I want to thank you for being part of this journey. Let's make the next 10 years even better.
Coming to you from the Freedom Federal Credit Union Studios, Harford County Living presents Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Slow pitch
It's probably the least sexy part of organizing. It's okay. No. The truth is.
So, Guy. All right, The Image. It's the third book in your SNO Chronicles series. And for those of you listening, if you don't know what SNO is, SNO, it's the Spy Net Online. Perfect. So it's the third book, but what inspired this latest installment, and how does it build on the first two books?
Great question. The inspiration always comes sometimes by surprise.
Mm-hmm.
The series is meant to deal with the dangers of AI, the collapsing of our geopolitical system, and how all of that actually has an uncanny, undeniable mathematical correlation to prophecy in plain sight. And so there's a little bit for me of a discovery. So I'm looking at news, I'm looking at relative science articles,
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at different scriptures that come up, and I'm trying to ask myself, what's if we're at this stage in the process, and what are the other issues that we haven't talked about, or what else is out there that could come next?
Right.
What are the dangers that I want to talk about? What are the geopolitical? How does AI, not just from a technology, how does it affect the world we're living in? That will change the society in which we live in the very near future. And then what are the aspects of that connect to prophecy? But some of the things that come up in the book I just discovered them by accident, and they're just so incredibly mind-blowing for me.
Yeah.
There's a moment that I'm going, it doesn't fit into the story. How can I fit that into the story?
All right, wait a minute. Hold up, Guy. For those of you listening, Guy and I can see each other, and when he's sitting there going, he's got the Dr. Evil thing going on with the fingers around his chin. Oh, God, I need to start doing video.
Yeah. I'm a funny guy. I look funny, so I think that helps. So at any rate, so it's by the surprise. So some of the things that came in by inspiration were the effect of artificial intelligence on our geopolitical balance and on banking, right? And most people, I'm an economist, so I was trained in understanding how changes in financial systems, changes in debt balances, changing in trade, changes in tariffs, changing in the trade balance and currencies around the world. And so when the Bretton Woods Agreement expired in 2024, for those who don't know, since the 50s, since World War II, there's been an agreement that basically called Bretton Woods. It basically said that all world trade around oil, around energy, would be based on the US dollar as the currency. Well, Arabia just recently refused to renew that agreement, which means that America is going to lose value. The dollar will lose value towards other currencies more so than we're used to in our entire lifetime. And alongside that, BRICS, which stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, South America, and there's another half a dozen countries in the alliance, essentially an Eastern, we think in terms of the powers of the world, in terms of the East and the West. It's sort of an Eastern alliance currency that they're all trading on, and it's digital. And recently, the International Monetary Fund, in anticipation of this decrease in the value of the dollar and concern over our uncontrollable debt levels and the inability for the GOP to basically to use our budget as a hostage, has caused our credit rating to fall 3 times in the last 4 years.
Wow.
Or actually 2 times since Trump, so the last 7 years. But that's a lot.
Yeah.
And so we now also have a president who, before he was elected, launched his own cryptocurrency and is blatantly grifting off of that in plain sight. As we go into a budget crisis that's continuing to increase our budget. And so the image really is a convergence of different issues coming on the world right now. And one of the taglines I'd like to use for it is sometimes we need to die in order to learn why we live.
Right.
And that has a lot of different layers of meaning in the story. But it's really a mesmerizing thriller. It deals with conspiracy, intrigue, artificial intelligence, Ukraine, the Project 2025. And one of the surprise issues and one of the terms for the image, the reason I gave it the image, really has to do with 2 aspects. And one of them was one I discovered by accident. There is an ancient relic that was once called the Dandelion. And then it was called, for hundreds of years, it was referred to as the Image of Edessa.
Okay.
And then it was stolen and taken to Istanbul, or Constantinople, where it was still called the Image of Edessa, and they actually minted Byzantine coins after it. And ultimately, that relic was stolen after the sack of Constantinople in 1204, taken to the Templar Grand Master's castle in southern France for Geoffroy de Charmey, until his great-granddaughter or something like that had to, for a debt, to satisfy a debt, deeded it to the Savoy family in Piedmont, Italy. We now know that Image of Edessa as the Shroud of Turin.
Oh.
And so I'm connecting the Image of Edessa with a vision of the image of the beast in the book.
Right.
That deals with world systems, banking, military, internet, AI-enabled, connected system that reflects the entire civilization, which we're calling the Image of the Beast. And so we're looking at the conflict between those 2 systems. And it'll have aspects that deal with quantum signals. We create a black hole we create a CERN experiment succeeds in creating a black hole that opens up a 5th dimension that entangles a quantum signal through the world computers. And from that, we're actually taking all of that background mess and we're looking at the quantum properties of consciousness in humans, in machines, and the properties of quantum properties necessary for what we call faith and true love. We've had love. We all experienced that. Where it's a connection to somebody.
Yeah.
That goes beyond what they look like and what they say. There's a connection there, and so we look at the quantum properties, quantum entanglement on a number of different levels, including experiments being done by the Chinese in quantum teleportation.
Huh?
So this is a really interesting book. It's my most challenging one yet, not only because I had to research and try to understand these technologies enough where I could communicate them in a simple way and connect them to the narrative, make them relevant to the narrative. But I was dealing with some geopolitical and spiritual issues that could potentially offend people.
Right.
Not only dealing with the 2024 election and Project 25, the nature of Project 2025, the nature of transferring our economy into this AI coup run by the World Economic Forum. And then we also look at some of the as we're doing all of these, my characters are going through all of their churning to try and understand what all this means. Dr. Garrett, the founder, the creator of the Sylvia, the main program in the story, goes on a spiritual journey, and he's trying to figure out what it means as well on that level. So we're looking at the churches around the world, and he needs to learn to tell the difference between fake religion and true faith, and which a lot of people is a problem for a lot of people. We look at, there's a lot of people who claim to be quote unquote Christian out there that have absolutely nothing to do with the faith at all.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a description of them and how they tie into being the apostate church that enables the man of lawlessness. And so it all connects together in that kind of sense. So we're dealing with political, we're dealing with scientific, we're dealing with religious issues. I'm trying to be really fair in who I'm offending. So I can include everybody. But we do so in a really fun James Bond meets an Indiana Jones kind of
just like the other books.
Yeah. There's humor. There's warmth, there's connection. The relationship between Derek and Jen has reached a crisis stage, as it would, and needs to transform. Sylvia has reached a crisis stage and needs to transform. And so it's a real pivotal book, I think, in the series.
Okay.
And not only talking about where the characters are going to have to go next, including Sylvia becoming sentient.
Huh?
And what does that mean? So one of the reasons we're dealing with the quantum properties of consciousness is that we're trying to explain the consciousness within Sylvia. And so but for many people, they don't really realize that the real world is probably less than half a dozen years, 3 to 5 years away from a super intelligent machine that could be conscious. And so one of the reasons we're talking about these things in the book, and we're having fun with it as we're doing it, is to talk about the real issues of what does that mean? What are we going to do? What can we do about it?
Right.
And how should we respond to all of this? And when we deal with consciousness and machines, there's this, of course, our science fiction legacy is that it's always going to become Hal in 2001. It's always going to become Vicky in the iRobot. The machine is always going to assume ultimate control and be evil. I don't necessarily see it that way.
Yeah.
I see AI as both evil and good, in that AI is a reflection of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reflection of our way we think, the way we talk, our language, our knowledge base, our business models, our finances, our health, our biology. Everything that AI has and does is a reflection of humanity.
Yeah.
But humanity has its darker angels.
Yes,
and so we cannot assume that AI will learn only one side of who we are and not the other. Mm-hmm. We have to assume it will learn both. And that becomes a really interesting narrative perspective to take, of saying, well, in what ways would a Sylvia be good and in what ways would it be bad? And that allows us to explore that sense of almost artificial intelligence, but artificial value system, right? And I'm still bending my mind around that one.
Sounds like Sylvia's going to have to get her own book.
Well, Sylvia has always been one of the stars, one of the main characters of the story. And she is gaining dominance in the narrative as we go through, because as she started off as being sort of the compliant partner tool, one of the aspects of consciousness that we deal with is the aspect of a will, an agenda. And we already know, we've already witnessed machines taking on their own agenda. We've seen
Yeah.
machines lie to people. We've seen machines deceive and manipulate people to get them to do something the machine can't do itself. We've seen machines read minds from MRI scans, learn research level chemistry, learn how to hack into systems they didn't really need to hack into, but they knew how to hack, and so they did it anyway for some reason. We're finding the machines continuing to develop new properties we never anticipated, because once you start to learn that becomes an unquenchable thirst.
Yeah.
And it's an unquenchable thirst in humans. I can't imagine that it wouldn't be in a machine that had the capacity to learn 1,000,000 times faster than I can.
So Sylvia is basically, for anybody that goes back to the first book, they're seeing her grow, I guess, from, let's say, a new AI. And in this book, the Image, she actually goes rogue, right?
Well, so for those who don't know, let's step back a little bit. Sylvia is based on a real program. Was inspired by a real program.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken some literary journeys with her based on the years of evolution since she was released to bring her up to date to current lab level technology.
Okay.
And there's a real easy reason I can do that, which was one of the reasons the original Sylvia was designed, was to absorb information, right? So no reason to think it wouldn't absorb other AIs as they're being developed. And so, but the Sylvia began as a true story of a spy program,
right,
that escaped the NSA spy laboratories at Sandia and was never recaptured. So it's a what we used to call a worm kind of device, a program that could move from place to place to place to place to place, move itself. But in this particular case, it was supposed to be stealth, and so it would erase its trail, log trail. Basically, had access to erase the log trails behind it, so they didn't know where it went. But the Sylvia had a purpose. They designed it that way for a reason, and so this is. And I know all of this is true because I'm a nerd that actually figured out how a spy program could escape the NSA, and why would they be so wild and reckless as to design it that way. They sent 2 FBI agents to my door. Now, that visit from the FBI, they were absolutely serious and freaked out about me knowing about their special program. I was absolutely over the top, obnoxiously giddy at the fact that they showed up at my door and proved I was right. So they had an impossible time trying to intimidate me that night. It was one of the best nights ever for me because you don't really get a chance to make fun and basically go crazy in front of the FBI too often in life. But I was obnoxious. I was like, I did it. I figured it out. So cool. You wouldn't be here if I was wrong. I'm telling all my friends, man, this is the best night of my life. Hey, can I see your badge again? I was really, really obnoxious. They looked at each other like they didn't know what to do. They gave me the "we are not amused" speech. I gave them a whatever shrug and said, well, I didn't break any laws. I didn't hack anything. You can't bust me for being a smart. I've looked it up. For me, it was a great night. But that was the beginning. That was the inspiration for the reality of what became the Sylvia.
So those of you listening, what Guy just told us is a true story because he told me that on the first episode.
Yep.
And I was rolling, and it's still funny as hell now when you talk about it. But if that wouldn't have happened, the books wouldn't be here.
Well, that's right. And it inspired the books. And so I'm looking at the reality of what we're really doing in espionage and military. And I obviously can't get all of it. A lot of it still is top secret. But what I did with Sylvia, when I first realized that a program had escaped, my mind went to the decades of training and experience I had working within software engineers and technical engineers, and started to backtrail thinking, okay, well, if I put on my James Bond Q hat, what would I do with these technologies? If I really wanted to be a good, Q spy, how would I work on building espionage stuff that could either spy, inform, hack, infiltrate, imitate, destroy, what would I do? And that's led me to do a lot of research that ultimately stumbled onto a lot of programs that actually existed. And so it's been an interesting journey for me. But my purpose in writing the whole series is to basically say the world is going to change rapidly.
Already
Most
has.
people are not prepared.
No.
They're not prepared for the economic collapse. The IMF is estimating close to 500 million people, jobs could be displaced.
Wow.
Only about 170 million of them could be repurposed within the AI field itself, which means you've got 350 million people trying to figure out what they're going to do now. And it's not that just this company's going to go defunct and you can go work for another company doing the same job. There's going to have to be retooling and retraining.
Yeah.
And some people that's going to be easy to do. Some people it's going to be impossible. And it's going to be a major social disruption. It could lead to economic issues, debt crisis issues, change. If we have a debt crisis, as an economist, I know that one of the possibilities is that they basically throw out, if it gets too bad, they'll throw out the dollar and issue a new currency. I can almost guarantee that would be a digital currency at this point. And under the current administration, it might be a private digital currency. And so we're looking at probabilities, right? Scenarios and probabilities. I used to install really big, complex technical systems.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really good. I was so good that I put together Microsoft's program management program, taught other managers, developed the whole program to reduce risk. One of the reasons I was good is because I am naturally paranoid, which means I was really, really good at a process we called risk management. Now, risk management is before you go into a project, is to simply sit down, everybody, all the stakeholders down and say, okay, let's talk honestly about what could go wrong. And people don't like to think that way. They're normally thinking in terms of, this is going to do these great things for me, and this technology works really well, and it's super technology, and this is going to improve your business. And I'm the guy that comes in after all of that sales bubble comes in and says, okay, now let's talk about how this could screw things up, how this could go sideways, who's going to get hurt, how it could go wrong, what we're going to do, if it does go wrong, what are contingency plans what are mitigation plans. Let's quantify all this. And we're not going to even start the project until we get this done. Some customers and some of my own team hated me. but it's the ability to do that well that prevents a lot of things from going wrong because you're prepared. So there's a part of me that's trying to do the same thing to the world, for the world, is to look at the world and say, we're dealing with the most powerful technology we've ever had. And it's more dangerous than any other technology for two simple reasons. We've never had a technology that was smart enough to replicate itself and essentially recreate another AI, and we do now.
Mm-hmm.
So we've never had a technology that could live, that could reproduce, and we've never had a technology that was smart enough and that was designed to basically kill. So we have lethal autonomous weapon systems that are basically designed to decide who's a target, what's a target, and take it out without anybody being involved in pulling the trigger. There's actually a treaty called LAWS, stands for Lethal Autonomous Weapon Systems. And LAWS basically says that it's okay to use AI to enhance the performance and agility or operation or simplicity of operating your weapon. But there has to be a human involved in the loop before you make that final trigger decision to kill somebody. Well, the problem is that of the 140 countries, the laws came out in 2019. Of the 140 some odd countries that have signed laws, to date, the United States, China, North Korea, Israel, Iran, and Russia have not, which means I can guarantee that every single one of those countries is actively working on a lethal autonomous weapon system. Now, in Swarm, I spoke about one of them, and in the Image, I'll speak about a different one.
Wow.
And so all of these things are kind of coming together. So we've got we've got espionage AI becoming sentient. We've got the Great Reset, basically on the verge of creating this new economic system that will give them way more power and control over everybody, create a techno-feudalism, as it were. We've got the corruption between Russia and Ukraine and the 2024 election. We've got all of these. We've got quantum signals and consciousness. It's an intense book, but so far, the people who've read it are all saying that it's the best yet. It kept them on the edge of their seat. They're still thinking about the issues that were raised. The narrator, Brian Cheney, who did the audible for Swarm and The Last Ark, he's currently working on The Image. He has stopped narration twice to email me to say, dude, this one is blowing my mind. I'm getting chills as I'm reading the book.
Wow.
So I'm a little bit nervous because it is dealing with some very sensitive issues like Project 25,
right,
2025, and some other things that deal with. But these are all real facts that, we're really dealing with these real things. They are changing the real world. And this is this is like a climax James Bond kind of movie dealing with if James Bond helped us to absorb and manage and deal with the stress of the Cold War, the Image and the SNO series are helping us deal with the AI coup and fall of democracy.
Wow.
And so the purpose of them is to help us deal with the issues honestly, but with characters that help you feel okay about it at the end, because they're going to give you courage, they're going to give you hope, they're going to give you insights that you're going to feel connected to them and want to be their friends. And that, I think, is important to make it feel less dystopic and more obstacles we can get over.
Speaking of the characters, if the SNO Chronicles, if they were turned into a streaming series, we'll go one by one. We'll go with just the voice first. Who would you cast as Sylvia?
Oh boy, that's an unfair question because I'm so detached from Hollywood at this point and who are the latest actors and actresses.
I don't even have a clue on the latest.
I know, and I kept thinking, well, no, he's too old. Oh no, she's too old. All the people I know are my own, are from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And
that's fine. Use them.
I know that
they were the best ones, anyways.
Yeah. I mean, certainly, certainly you could see if I think in terms of the intelligence and the snarkiness of Derek Taylor, Robert Downing Jr. certainly fits.
One of my favorite actors.
He's nonviolent. The main character refuses to hurt anybody, but that doesn't mean he can't get out of trouble in very inventive ways. He's somewhat of a pathological liar, but only because he has to be. It's a curse. But he's snarky, he's smart, he's sharp. He's not going to let anybody get away with doing, he's the kind of guy who's going to take down the bad guy and try and do it in a way that he never gets credit. I think Downing could fit into that. For Jen, there's almost a Demi Moore quality to Jen. If you think in terms of A Few Good Men, type of age spunkiness, but with a little bit more fire and independence. She was a little bit more of the apprentice in that movie. But I think if you took that and made her more of the Navy SEAL aggressor,
add a little G.I. Jane into her,
G.I. Jane in there, and I think you've got somebody who could fit that general. So, what makes it really fun in the story is that they're complete opposites, and the fact that they're attracted to each other causes lots of problems for both of them, and we'll explore some of those problems in the Image. Dr. Garrett, oh boy. I tell you, in real life, I patterned him. I at least patterned parts of his life and parts of his career after Sir Geoffrey Hinton, who is the real godfather of machine learning and AI. But from a movie character perspective, there's some of one of the British actors that, and I'm trying to remember trouble remembering their name, but one of the ones that would make an incredibly good snotty professor type. And there's several of them.
Yeah.
The Brits really have condescension down to a fine art. And I love that about them. I love that about them. Jester is a unique character in and of himself, a bohemian, quantum savant covered with tattoos and piercings, completely socially inept, but a genius when it comes to dealing with quantum computers. He would be a harder one, I think, to pin. You could almost, boy, who are the actors that really play crazy characters but in a lovable way?
Crazy characters but in a lovable. Well, Joaquin Phoenix.
I was thinking of Joaquin Phoenix. Except he'd have to do it in a less creepy. He kind of brought in a little bit too much of the creep in his Joker role, right?
Well, that's right. Let him go back to the Johnny Cash role.
That fit the role, but a little bit less menacing and a little bit more, kind-hearted weirdo savant that wouldn't hurt a fly, but you would never know it by looking.
Right.
I almost want to think in terms of who is that guy in the Green Mile that really he wouldn't be the wrong character, but somebody who looks super menacing, but
the guy that passed away in real life.
Yeah, the really
Michael's. God, I know who you're talking about.
But
I can't think of his name.
That personality of he comes across as menacing, but he really has a sweet heart, and nobody would know it unless they talk to him. So there's lots of great characters in there, and I brought in some new characters in the I have to come up with new villains every time,
right?
Which is actually one of the hardest parts of writing.
Really,
come up with a believable, multi-dimensional, not cliche bad guy.
Okay,
right? And that's harder than you'd think. And so I tried to come up with a couple of ones that I thought might. There's a couple of. Let me just put it this way. There's a couple of surprises.
Okay.
A couple of surprises. So this is I think an amazing story that will get you thinking about our economy, the Ukraine war, quantum computing, and how close it is and how dangerous it is. It'll help, I think. And of course, the Sylvia just has multiple personalities all the time, which is always fun. In this one, we'll start to dig up a couple of Derek's old relationships, old lovers, which is going to be interesting. And in the next one, we're going to get into the real story behind the murder-suicide of his parents.
The next one. So there's going to be a book 4.
There'll be a book 4. I'm starting to plan it. I'm taking a little bit of a break because my emotions get so wound up in these characters.
Right.
By the time I finish a book, and I've gone through it 35 times or so, I'm like, do I want to start the next sequel right away, or do I want to take a break and do something else for a couple of months and then come back to it? And so I'm taking a break to write 2 nonfiction books that tie into the series. So one of the nonfiction books that I'm working on now, it's about 2/3 done, is called Humanity and the AI Tsunami, a survival guide.
Oh, I love that title.
And it's a consumer level book that helps them understand a lot, what is AI, what it's not, what's the history, how did it get to where it is today? Didn't just show up. It's been 70 plus years.
Right.
What are the different types of AI? We tend to think of AI as this sort of monolith, but there's multiple types of AI. Some of them absolutely very small dangers. They're being used in thousands of different places in different ways, versus the really complicated ones that we worry about, right?
Right.
And then what are some of the things that AI will do? What are the risks, right? What are the generic risks from a technology perspective? And then what are some of the social risks? So we look at the job displacement. We'll look at AI in dating, AI in cybersecurity and weapons development, AI in crime. What are some of the things that we're doing? And then we'll take a few chapters and we'll say, okay, this all feels dystopic, but what can you do about it?
Yeah.
Right. Let's look at the last time when we had this major shift in our economy and people lost jobs because they didn't know how to work a computer. Right.
Yeah.
And I was there.
True.
I was in that transition.
Yeah.
That was part of my career, right? Going from you get your first job, there's the only computer terminals that exist in the business are the ones connected to the mainframe, and only a handful of us know how to use those. And then all of a sudden we get these personal computers, and they're very expensive paperweights at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right. And what was that transition to get people to figure out how to use them, find purposes for them, and then within a short time, there's no computers on a desktop, and then there's a computer on every desktop, but 2/3 of the people are now gone.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about what to do in those transitions, how to train with the different types of training, different types of choices. We'll talk about the adjustments to lifestyle that will come because of the changes in tax bases and other services. So I'm trying to help people think about, spirituality, finding other things to find more value in. We are a very materialistic society. Maybe that's not healthy for us in the long run. Maybe this is a way of an opportunity to readjust that. So we're going to look at some of the ways of thinking about the next 5 to 10 years, know ahead of time what's coming, but start to think in terms of, rather than me telling you what to do, here's some different things to think about and options for you to think about. And so it's a survival guide. It's not going to go super deep into any topic because, for one, it's going to change every other week as some of the technology changes and the services come and go. But it's a roadmap for surviving big change that might cost you a job or career or whatever.
I love that. So you think about it, the way technology has changed, since we started, and I think one of the biggest moneymakers of all time for when I was in the IT field was the Y2K scare.
The Y2K scare, I think, certainly forced a lot of companies to update their systems and think about their systems. But I know, because I was in consulting afterwards, that after they felt like they dealt with the must-dos, they went back to ignoring their systems and their security. And so Swarm was really a result of that, saying how many companies have neglected their cybersecurity and how vulnerable that makes us as a nation. And so, companies don't like to spend money on technology. They like to spend money on products, customers, executive payouts, a new computer system to help them do some blah, blah, blah. I can tell you from talking to executives my whole career, that is not the conversation the CEO likes to have.
No.
Right. No. And so it's been a challenge. Now, AI will be a little different because AI has the potential of getting them where they can be more productive with less people. They can lower costs.
Right.
They can create new products, new markets, new services. That will get their interest. The challenge will be, and I can guarantee this from working with these executives for 40 years, they will be hesitant to do the risk analysis that they should before they try to make sure that this is safe, it's equitable, that they're not going to have a legal problem, that it's not going to break. It won't. That if you're there's an example of Snapchat that created a friend bot for their kids on Snapchat. Most of them are teenagers. And one of these friend bots, and they just designed it to be friendly, to be supportive, to be encouraging, to be, a close, uplifting friend. Except there was this girl who was being kind of stalked by a 30-year-old guy online. And he was talking her up and said, "Hey, let's go away for the weekend. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll go camping, or we'll do these other things, blah, 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 blah."
Right.
The chatbot told the girl to do it. Oh, that sounds fun. We all like new experiences. Everybody loves new friends. It's fun to get outdoors.
God.
It did all of the generic encouraging stuff, but had zero training in ethics, morals, legalities, inappropriateness. And so it does one of the things that AI is known to do, which is a value misalignment, which is that my job as an AI was to just be a good, encouraging friend.
Right.
but it did so in an inappropriate way because it's not trained well enough. So we are going to have problems with these AIs, no question.
Yeah.
Will those problems bleed into how it does policing, how it does surveillance, how it does military intelligence, how it does legal advice, how it does chemical and pharmaceutical advice, how we use that, how fast companies are to adapt before they test, train, and are sure could have an impact.
Yes.
Are you familiar with the Michael Tegmark letter?
The who?
2023, an MIT professor named Max Tegmark, not Michael, Max Tegmark,
Okay.
issued an open letter from MIT, basically saying all of the labs, AI labs on the planet, military and commercial, should really agree to stop development so that nobody's getting ahead. Just let's all agree to stop for 6 months. Let's put committees together, get together, and let's resolve some of these potentially existential or bigger issues that none of us have the resources or the capacity to solve by ourselves, because that can also inform the kinds of regulations we need to have, kinds of litigations and legal and liabilities and accountability we need to have. And let's come back to this legal autonomous weapon thing. This is not good for humanity. Can we talk about this?
Giant mastermind group.
30,000 AI experts, and I was one of them, signed the letter, including experts, professors, policymakers, etc. Not one single lab on the planet agreed to comply, including government labs, because everyone was afraid that somebody else was going to cheat and that they would get ahead. They would, and so we're racing. Now, one of the reasons that 50% of all the people who signed that letter felt that there was at least a 10% or much higher chance that these technologies would lead to a human catastrophe. So with that knowledge, with all of those experts basically providing warning bells, humanity races ahead recklessly. Now, I would be guilty before God if I didn't do my best to try and help people to understand it. And if I write the most impressive white paper, nonfiction book called AI, Humanity and the AI Tsunami, even if that's the best book ever, and I guarantee you it won't be, because there's many really, really, really good ones out there that I'm using to help figure out what to write.
Right.
Most people aren't going to read that book. Most people will not read that kind of nonfiction, internal geek-to-geek warning. What they will read is a Jurassic Park that says, hey, it's bad to clone. What they will read is they will watch is a Mission Impossible movie that says, hey, there's this AI that could take over. By the way, I was so disappointed in how they dealt with AI in that movie.
I never watched it.
It was so. I wanted to watch Final Reckoning because I was talked about this AI that was in the movie.
Right.
I really didn't understand the issues. It was just basically a Mission Impossible kind, stunt movie. And there was an AI, the danger of it, but they really didn't deal with the AI issues itself. So, which is fine because I've got my books, but as a society, we're not good at dealing with these things unless it's but we're trained. We're culturally sensitive to dealing with these things in narratives. That's why we have our myths. We have our Bibles. We have our television stories. We sometimes learn our social morals by watching a story. And so one of the reasons why I made the decision to write these series was because I felt that was the best way for me to communicate these things to non-technical people who weren't in the field.
Yeah. Well, it's just, I remember this book I read, which was about the history of where I live, but it wasn't a history book. He wrote it as fiction, telling a story, but he used a lot of facts in it. Well, historical fiction, I guess is what they call it. People have no problem reading that, but you give them a textbook, a history book, or something like that.
Too many facts without enough narrative holding it together, and our brains don't know what to do with it. So that's why these books are being successful. But it's also why some people are afraid to read them.
Yeah.
So I was telling you earlier that when I do my book signings, The Curse of Cortez I sell twice as many of that as the other books combined. Because when you start describing that these books are really around AI and the collapsing geopolitical system, prophecy in plain sight, and it reads like a James Bond, and all the really cool things are involved, there's some people who are really cool into all of those conspiracies and mysteries and that are happening in real time, and they love it. But when you talk about The Curse of Cortez, that deals with lost treasure and it's lost civilizations and ghosts and romance and broken hearts. People will gravitate towards the story that doesn't make them think about their life. It's them an escapism. And so there's a part of the SNO series that is powerful because it connects people with the real world through a fictional narrative.
Yeah.
But that's also, for some people, scary and threatening.
The Curse of Cortez, was that your first book?
That was the first book I wrote.
Okay.
It was actually, I researched it and wrote it while I was still in my career. It started off, I wrote a short story for my son called Paolo and the Shark.
Mm-hmm.
And in Paolo and the Shark, I allude to these caverns and this lost secret. And then my son wanted me to write another book. And I thought, well, I maybe rather than just make stuff up out of my head, I should do what I love in books and start teaching him, which is go find a real historical story and build around that. So I wanted a real historical mystery. So he's an 11-year-old boy. He's going to want pirates, treasures, lost civilizations. Maybe I throw in a couple of ghosts or something to make it fun. And, just enough violence, to make him excited, not enough to give him nightmares. And so I started researching real history and mysteries. And I stumbled onto the mystery of Henry Morgan's lost treasure. And I got stuck. I got obsessed. First I thought, well, I'll just do a little research about Morgan's life so I can be true to Morgan's world. But the more I researched, it became an obsession that lasted 12 years.
Wow.
So I took multiple trips to the Caribbean, and a part of my vacation to the Caribbean was always a side trip to go explore some element that I had looked up, but I wanted to go see it for myself, or I had to go find somebody locally to tell me about it. During those trips, I met some of the characters in the book ended up were people I'd met during some of these trips, including one of the comic relief characters named Chico. Chico was a seaplane pilot. I flew Chico's seaplane to go look at a road that was cut into a coral reef that was several miles offshore. So it was when the waters were much, much, much lower, right? So 13,000 years ago, this road was cut into the coral. But it was several miles offshore, so I couldn't get any boats to go out there because it was a deep dive, and it wasn't a good touristy dive, so I couldn't get any boats. But Chico would fly me out there. I remember walking out of the terminal, and I'm looking down the dock, and I see his plane, and my first thought, I didn't even, just my gut instinct was, oh, God, this is how I die. The other character was one of the villains. His real name is Shea Golan. I didn't change his name in the book. The real Shea was a fugitive out of Israel. He was wanted by Interpol, wanted by the FBI. He was doing dirty work for the Zeta cartel in Cancun when he broke into my condo and with a Doberman and a bodyguard and threatened to kill me if I messed with him. So I'm a street kid from L.A. I was homeless at 13. I knew how to take care of myself. I'm a little midget of a man, so nobody thinks anything. But my first instinctive response was, "Oh no, you didn't." And so after I cost him everything, I messed with him. I cost him everything he owned in Cancun. It's a long story. I won't go into it. Without violence, I put him in the book, and I messed with him in the book. I got my twofer in life. So Shea is my twofer. But what's made fascinating what fascinated me about Morgan was that Morgan took 36 ships, 2,000 men to raid the city of Panama, richest city in the New World at the time. All of the treasures from the Inca Empire were stored in Panama. All the treasures coming in from the Orient that had just opened up, Ming Dynasty vases and bronzes and tusks and silks and all of these other things that were priceless in Europe were stored in Panama. Gold, silver, spices, things from the Western Mexico were stored in Panama. Gems, jewels, emeralds from Ecuador and Colombia stored in Panama. The richest city in the New World.
Right.
They would take military mule trains over the mountains to Portobello, put the treasure on ships on the Caribbean side of Panama, ship it to Cuba, where they would restock and refresh before they go to Spain. Well, Morgan decided to go after the city instead. So took 36 ships, 2,000 men, went after the city, lost half of the men in the trip over the mountains to get there from snakes, indigenous disease, malaria, raids by the local Indians. But even with 1,000 men, the whole city of Panama, he conquered it in a day. The whole city burned to the ground. He brought back, stayed there for 4 months, burned people, basically tortured them to get their secret stashes, came back with 35 tons, over $1 billion in treasure, and 600 slaves to be sold or turned into ransom. And when he got back to his fleet, he cheated all of his men, gave them each a couple hundred pieces of gold each, which was nothing, and then disappeared with everything on 3 ships. Never seen him. But Morgan survived. And when he got back to Jamaica, he was taken to England immediately. He was arrested immediately because when he made this raid, he had broken his peace treaty with Spain. And so in London, though, the guy's a freaking hero. Right. So they knight him as Sir Henry Morgan. They send him back to Jamaica with a garrison of soldiers as lieutenant governor. But instead of going back to get his $1 billion of plunder, he went into this insane drunken debauchery and burnt his logbooks. 3 years after he died, the whole city of Port Royal sank into the ocean. The locals said they had been cursed by Morgan.
Wow.
All of that is 100% true. I could not get that story out of my head. I want to know, first off, what happened to 3 ships, 600 souls, and 35 tons of treasure? It's not like you're going to bury that in the sand, X mark the spot.
No.
Palm tree 2. So I started trying to figure out the logistics of how would you store, where would you take something like that? Where could that be? Where were all the places Morgan had ever been through every documentation I could ever found? What kind of cavern systems are on those places, right? Because I figured it had to be a cavern someplace.
Right.
And so I just started backing into it. And as I said, it took me years. And once I finally found a place that fit all of the parameters, and there was even a guy in 1911 who found part of the treasure, but he was even he was so traumatized he would never talk about it.
Wow.
And so he basically tried to lie about where he found it because he was traumatized. So ultimately I tried to figure out, okay, well, what happened to Morgan that traumatized these guys so badly that they would never go back for the rest of it? That journey took years more. A lot of rabbit hole, but ultimately led me to the origins of the Mayan creation myth.
Oh, okay.
So the Curse of Cortez covers layers of history, archaeology, mythology, and that's all backstory, but like a Dan Brown novel. Now, the Curse of Cortez was listed by Book Trip, which is Barnes & Noble, as one of their favorite 25 books of 2021. They called it Indiana Jones meets Da Vinci Code, which is pretty cool.
I love that.
I prefer Indiana Jones meets the Goonies for grown-ups, sprinkled with Stephen King.
I love the Goonies.
Yeah. So it's an amazing story, but all the backstory is true in historical.
Yeah.
Fictional story, the new story, the modern story on top deals with fictional characters that I pulled from real life, that's a fictional story. But that covers, humor, and romance, and paranormal, and adventure. You will laugh, cry, grip your nails until they break, but you end with a big smile.
All right. So was your son the first one to read the book?
My son has yet to read that.
What?
He gets guilt trips every single visit, not only from me but from his mother and from his girlfriend. Everybody gives him guilt trips. He started reading it. He's now busy. He's really into his girls and dating, and he's in his 40s, and it's like, I don't have the time, Dad. My job is really, it's like, I spent the time to research and write. You're going to spend the time to read it. So it's actually a thing between us now at every visit. So did you finish? And he gets that guilt look, and it's like, okay, I have something for next time now.
I was going to say, give everybody his address, and we'll let all the listeners purchase books and send it to him. But no, you don't want to do that.
I love my son. I do want him to read it someday. I don't want him to hate me over it.
Actually, is there an Audible version of it?
There is a female named Jamie Rodriguez has read it, because the main character, the main protagonist, actually a co-protagonist, which is male, but the main protagonist is female. So I wanted it told from a kind of a female protagonist perspective, because Sylvia Martinez lives on the island where all of this history occurred, and in the fictional narrative, her family has been under the stigma that they were cursed for hundreds of years. She's the last of the family name. Her parents died when she was young and left her an orphan by the curse. She doesn't even know what it's from anymore. She doesn't care. She just wants to clear this dark stain off the family name. And when an earthquake unearths some old relics under the family home, she takes him to a museum, thinking that could be the ticket to providing fact over the fantasy. But it opens up a can of worms and unleashes a drama that she never anticipated. She winds up having to get help. She winds up having to find a relative she never knew existed. He had inherited a part of the curse that he never understood.
Wow.
In order for them to get help, he's got to go enlist the help of his son, who he hasn't spoken to in 10 years. And so there's family drama, there's inherited insanity, and there's all this other issues. But Sophia not only winds up solving the mystery, but it costs her. It was an ordeal she never would have ever chosen on her own. But at the end, she finds her true love. So,
oh wow,
satisfying. It ends in a very positive way. It's a really wonderful story. It's, as I said, I sell more of that book than the other books combined, because people just love a good ghost story, pirate story, treasure story. It crosses the Inquisition, the Mayan mythology, cartel lore. It's all around. I call it my summer blockbuster movie starring Antonio Banderas.
I bet the women love that.
Yeah. I'm still trying to get Antonio to read the book, but
I was going to say, if you send it to him, he may read it before your son does.
You know what? He just may.
Something very important. Tell everybody where they can find your books.
Oh, yes. GuyMorrisBooks.com. Really
very easy.
Each book has fact versus fiction pages, which is really important, because there's so much fact baked into every single book that I feel like I need to be transparent to say what's true versus what's fictional. There's highlights from reviews, and of course the Image has just come out, but there's already getting rave reviews. And then there's trailers, and then here's a secret. There's links to go buy on Amazon, Barnes & Noble online, other digital copies. But if you buy it from my website, go to more, and there's a bookstore. If you buy it from my website, two things happen, two magical things. One, I'll get the money instead of Jeff Bezos. We like that. And two, you'll get an author signed copy sent out within 24 hours.
Which you're not getting that when you purchase it from Amazon or Barnes & Noble.
I guarantee it.
No.
And he's print on demand, which means they got to print it first before they even send it. So you'll get it faster. You'll get an author signed copy. You'll get a better price, and you'll deny Jeff the pleasure of selling one of my books.
And the other good thing about that is when people purchase them directly from the bookstore on your website, when they finish reading it, they can still leave a review on Amazon, Goodreads, or Barnes & Noble.
Exactly. Now, if you want an Audible, we have Audibles on Amazon as well. If you want a Kindle, those are on Amazon. So you can get whatever format you want. I haven't done hardbacks yet, but I'm thinking of doing a Kickstarter campaign to fund the production of hardbacks. We'll see if I get that done this year.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
All right. So before I get to my last question, is there anything you would like to add? And the last question is not going to be like the last time you were on. I did something different now.
Okay. Well, I just encourage everyone to go read The Image. While it might be third in the series, it's a standalone, and just like a Star Wars, if you really love it, you can go back and read the other ones afterwards. But it's either way, get to it. It's a powerful story. It will take you on a thrill ride. It will give you some things you don't expect, and it will give you some things to think about that will last for months or years beyond the book. And one of the things I tell, the themes that I kind of tell people is that sometimes you need to die in order to learn why we live.
Yes.
And there's a number of elements of what dying could mean. But it's a really important theme in the book that I think will carry through to you and it really make a difference in your life.
One of my favorite quotes was from not Mitch Albom. He wrote the book, Tuesdays with Maury. And Maury Schwartz said something like that. He's like, you don't know how to live until you learn how to die.
Exactly.
So, yeah. All right. So I have no idea what the question is going to be here.
You don't know.
I don't know because I have
better figure it out.
Well, I have 50 different questions here.
Oh,
now,
wow. Okay.
Now, a lot of people are, so I'm going to ask you to pick a number, but here's the funny thing.
Random choice. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of people that have picked the question, somehow or another, it ended up being what we talked about. So we'll see if you can do that. So pick a number between 1 and 50.
Let's say Sweet 16.
Sweet 16. Thanks, guy. Now I'm gonna have that damn song in my head. Okay. Actually, yeah, this works. If you could leave behind one legacy, what would you want it to be?
Never let your past define your future.
Oh, I like that.
I have a particularly troubled childhood, and I've made a lot of stupid mistakes in life. Those could easily defeat me if I allowed them. And I know that not everybody has that same level, but I know that everybody has things that they would like to get beyond.
Yeah.
And so whatever that is, and particularly for people who've been traumatized on any level, and especially in this world right now, there's a lot of that going around. But never let the past define your future.
That needs to be put on a t-shirt for everybody to wear.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, Guy, I want to thank you so much. Those of you listening, again, make sure you purchase the books from Guy's website, from the bookstore. Get your autographed copy. After you read it, leave a full review, and then purchase some copies for some friends of yours or for, a group, businesses, whatever. It doesn't matter. There you go.
Great book club, because there'd be lots of issues with dealing with economics, banking, religion, faith, politics, the nature of life itself. This is an incredible books club book because it might be a thriller, but it's full of philosophical and other issues that I think really would make great discussions.
Ooh, great idea. Oh, you know what? I'm going to have to start suggesting that now. Book clubs.
Yeah.
I like that. Guy, thanks a lot, man.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Conversations with Rich Bennett. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something from it as I did. If you'd like to hear more conversations like this, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you have a moment, I'd love it if you could leave a review. It helps us reach more listeners and share more incredible stories. Don't forget to connect with us on social media or visit our website at conversationswithrichbennett.com for updates, giveaways, and more. Until next time, take care, be kind, and keep the conversations going. You know, it takes a lot to put a podcast together, and my sponsors help out a lot, but I also have some supporters that actually help me when it comes to the editing software, the hosting, and so forth. There's a lot that goes into putting this together. So I want to thank them. And if you can, please visit their websites, visit their businesses, support them however you can. So please visit the following: Real Life Prosthetics, cutting edge solutions, restoring ability since 2001. Go to reallifeprosthetics.com. Full Circle Boards. Nobody does charcuterie like Full Circle Boards. Visit them at fullcircleboards.com. Sincerely Sawyer Photography. Live in the moment. They'll capture it. Visit them at sincerelysawyer.com.